Hello, everybody, and welcome to Divine Messy Human, the podcast. Today, I have the wonderful Georgie Doherty with me. She is a certified body image and mindset coach and moon mentor. She empowers women to shift from self-criticism, shame, and body hatred into being able to relate to your body with acceptance, appreciation, and respect. She believes that when we can learn to love and accept the hated and rejected parts of ourselves during the dark and challenging times, we can start to transform and heal our deepest wounds. Georgie is a lover of the moon and a certified moonologer. She brings women together through her virtual lunar life events, a sacred and safe place for women to learn how to align their life and business with the lunar cycles and to connect and share from their true selves. Bringing the study of the lunar cycles, energy systems, and her Master of Health and Life Coaching certifications to her life and business, Georgie creates a balanced and sustainable approach to developing a thriving and successful life. Georgie lives in Melbourne, Australia, with her 4 kids and twin flame. She is a foodie and coffee snob and has recently become a first-time published author in a multi-author book called Magnetic Abundance. Welcome, Georgie.
Hello, thank you. Just hearing that, amazing, thank you.
It's always strange hearing your bio read out, isn't it?
Just a little bit. Just thank you.
So thank you so much for joining me today. As always, it is wonderful to have you here. I go to Georgie's Lunar Life events and they are just so soul nourishing and wonderful way to align yourself and your business, because a lot of what we do, even though it's focused on business, is actually our self development and keeping ourselves in alignment with the moon. And it's just a wonderful way to keep cycling.
I like that. That's a great way of putting it. Keep cycling.
Yeah. Well, it is that constant turning over.
Love that. Yeah, it is. And all of a sudden it's the new moon again and the full moon, and it's like new beginnings and time to rest. And it doesn't stop. It's, even if you think life isn't moving, it actually is. And that's that reminder every month. Oh my God, it's the new moon again. Yes. It's the full moon again. Yes. So it's always available and it's always going to come.
Yeah. And I love that, because what have we got this week? We have
the full moon in Scorpio, which I'm kind of excited about. People, if you know, with Scorpio, there's a lot of taboo around the Scorpio or fear around that. If we know someone who's a Scorpio, there's that they have a sting in the tail. So there's those kind of perceptions of a Scorpio. But what I love about it, it's a very sexual energy. It's a very creative energy. It gives me, like, just even talking about it, it makes me want to go out and dance naked under the moon. That's kind of what the moon, that's not what we do in our events. Yeah.
not yet.
Not yet. But that's that kind of available potential energy of that Scorpio. And it's an eclipse, so the intensity is higher than what it would normally be. And Scorpio is transformation. It's the death and rebirth. So that's kind of that potential energy of Scorpio that's available within each of us. So that's what we're going to be working with this month. So yeah, I'm excited.
Oh, it's always wonderful. One of the things that I always love about Scorpio is that they are one of the most passionate and loving signs, but it's because they're not afraid to dive into the depths, and they love you not because of your light, but because of your shadow as well as your light. So they're one of those signs that is really happy to go and get into the muck and love you because of it and in spite of it, which I think is really amazing.
Oh, yes. My daughter, Olive, the 9-year-old, my eldest one, she's got a lot of she is a Scorpio, and she's got a lot of Scorpio in her chart. So she's got a very Scorpio intensity about her, and very blunt, very honest, and it's very conversations about death are not like it's just normal to her and easy conversation as births. So it's very interesting having a Scorpio child, and you can sort of sit with how I used to call her the queen of triggers, because no matter who she into, she'd trigger the crap out. And I'd be like, there's something there for you. But yeah, so that was her. I used to call, not to her personally, but to be like the queen of triggers.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
it's so true. And it's been really enlightening for me to start, I guess. I always knew what my chart was and, the main points of my chart, rising sign, sun sign, moon, north node, south node. Those sort of major bits I always had in the back of my mind. So when I was reading horoscopes or whatever it was, I'd read both, sun
Mhm.
and rising, all of that. But it's been beautiful bringing that extra layer into working with the moon in terms of where is the moon placed, what house therefore is that in for me, therefore what focus does it give. It's just given that extra layer of depth to using the moons to cycle.
Yeah, that structure and guidance for
Mm,
you is available, and it's so unique to you.
yeah.
So you have to figure so much out, or completely go out of you to the external, like what that person's doing, that's what I must be doing. So this is that opportunity to go, oh, I've got my own way of doing something. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So what led you into following the moon cycles? What was your path to get there?
Ooh, I've been asked this before, and I'm not really sure I even knew the answer then. Um, I know that I think, well, pretty much everyone who does end up working with the moon, there's always been a fascination with the moon, since I can remember. But then the step to go, oh, there's more to it, was it was before COVID happened. So it was like 2018, 2019, that period. Where just you would hear people talking about the moon and wishing on the moon and creating intentions and all of this. And I was like, that's interesting. And there's just something about it that fascinated with me. Like, that's a different way to set your goals, because the way that we're shown to set goals just never resonated with me. It just made me not want to do them. The standard, like in sports, that this is what you got to do, you got to strive for this, and this is just made me want to do the opposite. And there's something about this that really spoke to me, and actually did the thing, because there was a lot more flow with it, and I don't know, just gentle. There's a gentle way of doing it. And I remember the first time I saw it was about, you wish on the full moon. So you do your wishes and intentions on the full moon. And I printed out the stuff when I had a printer. I don't still work. So I printed all this out. So on the full moon, I would follow these steps. And I remember it was talking about like the houses, and like to put, and I'm like, what does that even mean? I'm like, I don't understand what my house is, what, and I could not figure it out. And it was driving me, because I was like, and I just left it. I was like, I won't do that part of it. I'll just do set the intentions and go out and look for the full moon. And then it kept coming out, no, I really feel like this is important. And that's when I started diving into it and read and started, showing up every month to those live events, Facebook lives, so I can learn a bit more. And then and I could see it happening, like unfolding, like the wishes that I was putting out into the universe, and the intentions. And I started to realize that you've got to be really, really clear about what you want, because yes, you're going to get it, but it's going to not be what you expect sometimes. And one of my biggest, I'm not saying that I'm a very powerful person, I am within, but I remember one of my biggest wishes that I put out there, which that's where I started to go, hold on a minute, there's something here, maybe I want more of a connection and community with this. was when I went through my separation with my ex and then was moving into my own place with the girls, with my two girls. And I was like, how the hell am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to work, look after them and have money? But all I want to do is just be home with them right now. Mostly Diana, because she was still like, oh gosh, 16 months or just turned 2. And I didn't want to be working, killing myself working to do this. Like there had to be another way. And so I put this out to the universe, like this is what I wanted. And then I kept making that sort of wish monthly on that new moon. A few months later, the entire world went into lockdown. I got exactly what I wanted. I got to be home and we were receiving money from the government as well. And I was like, well, that's not exactly what I meant, but you know what? I'm going to take it and roll with it and enjoy this process. So it was interesting. And then it was through that time where I just wanted more of that connection with people and with women and teaching them to create their own way of doing things through the cycles and their birth chart. And so that's kind of how it was born, really. Like I really wanted to be able to talk to women in a safe place about what was really going on and not have that kind of judgment and criticism that we see when we put our truth out on social media. You know you're going to get back more than you want sometimes. And so it was creating this safe space to show up. And yeah, just went with it and started as a network. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to throw in the moon and the lunar cycles because it's friggin' amazing. And here we are 2 years later and it's amazing. So that's how it kind of how it unfolded, really.
And it's amazing, as you say, it is a safe space and it is going much, much deeper than just that surface business level. And the people in the group really do know each other at such an intimate level, which is fantastic. So how do you bring this into your coaching?
How do I bring it in? Or yeah.
Or do you bring it in and how do you
I-
bring it in?
yeah, I definitely bring it in. So in terms of the way that I set up my coaching sessions, I align it with the cycles. So for an example, would start the session of the month where the new moon is. Doesn't have to be on the day. So that could be in the middle of the month, it could be at the first. So it's not about starting on the first of the month. It depends what the new moon is. And then sort of working with those energies as the cycle gains momentum. So taking action, whether that's in your business or life. And then as we sort of move towards closer to the end of the cycle, it's more focusing on more of that inner work, like the releasing, going deeper, because that energy is going lower and lower and darker. So it is that opportunity to go more within. And so that's kind of how I work it in with as a structure with my coaching. And then with the dark moon, so the final phase, we don't do any coaching then. And then that's sort of that opportunity then for the client to really take everything and bring it into their life of what's working, what's not working. And then we start the cycle again with the next new moon. And I also take their birth chart as well. So if they do know their birth credentials, which is their date of birth and their time, really need the time and their place, the place of birth, then I bring that in as well. So it takes that deeper of what to what they're going to be working on that month in particular. So that house, and also showing them what is possible for them. So yes, we have this available to us. It doesn't mean that's the path you're going to take. There is the opposite to take. So it's showing them their possibilities of where they can grow and evolve to, and working, of course, on the shadow self. And the great thing, like working with you, this is a modality that maybe I don't go into trauma work, but I do know someone. So it's like taking that and who we can collaborate with, like this piece of the coaching session, and they go to someone that can go deeper as well. So that's kind of how I work with the moon.
Yeah, amazing. And how do you think that bringing the moon in has changed how you used to coach? Because obviously you've been coaching for quite a while now through a number of different ways and platforms. So how do you find that having aligned your coaching with the moon has changed your practice and your business?
Definitely a lot more. Well, I'm going to go with like within, a lot more ease and like flow within. And then it's also, I've noticed my intuition is heightened a lot more. I've noticed because there are some coaching sessions that I do that are kind of out of my control on how it's booked. So I do notice, depending on like where we are in the cycle and I'm taking coaching, and that's not necessarily where it is, my intuition isn't that often. And I just got to do the best with what I have, the tools in that moment. But like nothing's coming. So that's what has shifted in my coaching, working with that, knowing when my intuition is at its bit like heightened and when it's not, and then and if I do that, what to do in those sessions instead, because there's so much that we can work on. There is the surface level stuff that is important, and sometimes that's all that's needed. It's just like they just need the structure of like, this is what you like, this is it, that, and you don't need your intuition for that. For me, that's like a skill that I have. I can take the big picture of theirs and then come into the right, what's the first step, and create it. So that I don't really need my intuition. It's more the deepest. And so that's how coaching has evolved from when I started like 6 years ago to now, working with the moon and the cycles.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think it really helps you to get to know yourself at a much more deep and intimate level when you are looking at where everything is in your birth chart, and therefore how it is affected in this cycle, whether it be, when something's in retrograde, well, where's that sitting in your chart, and therefore how does it affect you? I've been looking at that sort of stuff for quite some time, and it always amazes me if I'm going through a point of struggle, and then I'll read something to do with the astrology and what's going on, and it will mirror pretty much what I'm experiencing. And you're going, there's been too many synchronicities for this to be a coincidence.
Oh, it's crazy. And sometimes what I've noticed is I only get to see that after it's happened. So it's almost like I wasn't meant to know while I was going through it, but then it can come out of it, and then I've seen something, someone's posted something, or received an email or something, told me to go read this thing. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's exactly what's just happened. Why are you telling me this now?
Yeah, I usually get it after the fact as well. It's like I'm put in there and I'm struggling through, feeling like I'm on my own.
Yes.
And then there's that bigger picture to it. And I think that's also a really beautiful thing that we bring in to the networking, is that we know that we're not struggling on our own. We know that what we're going through, somebody else has been through, or is going through, or will go through, or knows somebody who's been through. So there's always empathy and compassion from other people, even if they haven't been through exactly the same thing. They've got such a close idea of what's happening because of the way that we work and how intimate we get. So yeah, I absolutely love that. So in terms of that work that you're doing now, how do you bring all of your lived wisdom into obviously this learned experience? So I guess mixing the informal life stuff with that formal qualification stuff. How do they marry for you?
Oh, that is a great question. I think, well, for me, the thing that keeps coming up is the thing I use the most is my intuition. And so I I mean, I could probably put it on paper at some point, but I will definitely need to help with that. But it's like I have all these tools and this knowing, and then, but I don't know, I don't know how to explain it. Like I couldn't tell you exactly what everything is and what it is. But as soon as I'm in a session with someone and there's a question and I'm able to respond to that, and that's when everything just comes together in that moment. And then I'm able to know where to take them and what to use and what to tap into. But if you ask me the question now without it having any context, wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
But it is fascinating. I do get that like with for some of you who don't know, I also coach students who are becoming health and life coaches. So I do get a lot of, how are you supposed to remember all this stuff? Oh, it's, you just do through practice, through doing the work yourself, and it just becomes a part of who you are and a part of your life, and none of it is separate. And so it's bringing all of that in to that one moment, into that one session. And yeah, it all just comes together when you do the work and you practice. Yeah, it's a fascinating process.
I remember going through my kinesiology and just being panicked that I wouldn't remember things. And there's still stuff that I've studied that, because I studied so quickly, I'm a little bit, oh gosh, I haven't seen that since I studied, when it does test up in clinic. But that's the beauty of having the books with all the information in,
You
is
just know where to go.
have to remember. We just need to know where to go to find
Right.
it, which is
Yes.
obviously always nice to take that kind of pressure off, that you don't need to know everything. But I think also it is putting it into practice. And I know that you're somebody who walks their walk. It's not just talking your talk. And I think that is the difference between, you know, these coaches that are okay and those coaches that are brilliant. I think we need to really be living it. I often say my job isn't just my job anymore. I eat, breathe, sleep. You know, if I'm, last night I didn't sleep very well, so I had insomnia again, which is always my telltale that something else is going on, or that I'm going through upgrades or whatever it is. And so in the middle of the night, I'm laying there doing different clearings and energy work and talking to my guides and bringing in all of these bits to get me into a more relaxed state, so that even if I don't go back to sleep, I am as relaxed and as close to sleep. I often say to my partner, I'm amazing at now pretending to sleep, because I've had so much experience at it. But there's that beauty of knowing that there is this big plethora of tools that you can draw on in your own life and experience, because things aren't always going to be rosy and shiny and wonderful, because we're living life.
Being messy, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how, when we're talking that, the walking the walk versus talking the talk, tell me some of the things that you bring into your daily practices that ensure that you are walking that path.
Yeah. Ooh. So yes, the same thing, live and breathe it. We'll say, as we are all human, my biggest challenge right now is being in a relationship with, not just with, being in a relationship with myself, nailing that. Like I've nailed that. But being in a relationship with somebody else, another partner, that's my biggest challenge right now. And that's where I am still learning to tap into my resources, because I am, and I'm very aware, and I think that's what's important, is having that awareness, very aware that I still, most of the time, my inner teenager or my inner child comes out, and that's the first point of contact. And then it's like, when that calms down, and then recognizing that and going, okay, so what can I do to bring myself, you know, back into the here and the now and my adult self? And the tools that I use a lot of, and that is walking, getting out in nature, and but not just getting out and walking with still the thoughts in my head of like, oh my goodness, that makes me so angry, you know, that mind, because that's still not really helping. You just walked away, but still the power is with that other person. And so it's being in, so what I've started to notice is being more intentional about leaving and going on those walks and getting into my body. So taking those deep breaths, really connecting with the breath. It's something really simple. This is the thing, is people are looking for things that are just complicated because it's too easy. And it really isn't, but it's that you taking that and really being intentional about it. And so that's what I have noticed I'm doing more of now that I can walk, is really connecting with my body and my breath and getting out of my head and my thoughts and leaving it there so that I can feel more calm in my body, because I know the stress that puts on my body, and it's not benefiting me or my kids or my relationship or my clients. And it doesn't take that long now for me to get from that place of anger and frustration and stress and into more of that relaxed calm within. And that's because I've done the work. So that's a big one that I do often. And something that I just do every day without even a thought is nourish my body with like eating. So something I've done in the past for many years, probably for most of my life, is when life is happening and it's very stressful and chaotic and I have no control of it, I wouldn't eat. So, but, oh, I don't matter, I'll just eat later, or just when I eat, I'll just go to bed. Whereas now I'll make it happen. Like, I'm hungry, my body's hungry, and for me to then, you know, start the new day, it's like I nourish my body. So I'll go find whatever I can. It doesn't have to be perfect, just to simply satisfy my hunger, and but also getting back into that state of being relaxed, because I know there's no benefit to eating under stress. It just puts more stress on the body. So these are all things that I do now with ease, without even sort of thinking about it. It's like it's coming from my body is listening. So this is what I do daily. It's, I suppose, it's become a daily practice, a daily habit, a daily ritual. And yeah, I think another, also, these are really simple things, but it is keeping hydrated. Having a lot of children and a stressful relationship as well, and you know, being of service and having clients, it takes a lot. And so being more mindful, and also it's now just something I do. I have my coconut water. I have lots of coconut water, bottles of coconut water, and water with I was going to say mercury, but that's not
Yeah, you don't want mercury in your water.
Magnesium. Magnesium. Yeah, so these are just so simple, but it's coming from a place of loving myself. And so no matter what, it's taking care of me. And so that's where it's coming from. It's not, oh, I have to do this so I can love myself. So that's where I've switched it around. And so these are kind of things that I do daily because I've done the work as well.
Yeah, and I think you're so right. It's one of the things I definitely try and do with clients is simplify whatever we can. The more simple, the better. And I always say you're coming to me to lessen your stress, to come out of overwhelm and to make your life better. If I add complicated rituals and complicated tasks, it's adding stress to you.
You're not going to do it.
And that's the thing. I think a lot of people want to keep the complication in it and keep the mystery and the mysticism in it to have that constant flow of clients. Because if you need me, you need to keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back. Whereas when it is, here's some really simple things that will completely change your life. Here's some of the deeper work, and go fly. it's a very different way of working with people and empowering them to be in control of all of those broader aspects of life. So I do love that you say about the simplification, and also switching that focus from I have to eat, I have to nourish myself, I have to do this, to I'm doing this because now I love myself. I've done enough work now to recognize that without me, I have nothing. And I don't even need to, it's a choice. I am choosing to honor that gift of life with self-loving actions. And I think that is so beautiful of the way that you describe it, because that can often be one of the most challenging bits to turn around.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Getting into a little bit more of it now, what is your understanding of spirituality, and how do you practice your version of spirituality in your life?
Ooh, I love this question. This actually came up in a coaching session with a student. And uh, and the way that I said it was, when I first was presented with spirituality about 6 years. Well, I'm not going to count the yoga. I didn't really see it as spirituality when I did my yoga teacher training a while back now. But when I started with the coaching, I was talking about that which is greater, and I was asking questions like about, how you connect with that which is greater, and I did not know how to answer the question. It's like, what is that? First, like, I didn't get what that is, that which is greater is. Like, what is that? And what do you mean connect with it? What's it? Like, it really.
Do you
And
know,
this was.
I'm going to say this now because it's just reminding me. The very first session you came to with me, and you said, I'm not a spiritual person. And it
Yeah.
was just so funny then, from then, to watch this evolution of you finding your spirituality and blossoming in the work that you're bringing into the world, but also in relationship and as a mother, and doing motherhood differently than even I did it, which was self-sacrifice and martyrdom and all of those lovely aspects of motherhood, which are perhaps not in the light. But it was a really interesting comment that you'd made. And then I was watching you going, you're really spiritual. You've got that.
I just did. Yeah. And that was pretty much, about 5-6 years ago. Just did not get it. And I don't know if it's because my understanding was it was religion. And so really not going into any of that, but just religion is not part of my life or upbringing in that way. And so, but I just didn't get it. And so, yes, through, I suppose, just continuing with what someone said is what you, something that you keep resisting is something that you're being called to do, to hear more of. And so I kept with it. And I guess now, and then it was moving through that, spirituality was meditating and putting on meditation music and doing the yoga and becoming vegan. It just fascinates me just listening to myself like this, like the process. But now, to me, spirituality is being in the mess of life and actually being in it, and not sort of judging it or defining yourself by the situations you're in. And it's not about, taking yourself out of those situations and going to India. And like, that sounds amazing. Hopefully one day I'll get the opportunity, but that's like one piece of it, going there and being Buddha. But spirituality is recognizing those triggers, working through it, and actually embracing it, being part of it. And there's an awakening there. Like, there is your life, your mess is spirituality. It's nothing You don't have to go out and look for it. You don't have to go become vegan. You don't have to do yoga. Like spirituality is you, it is your life. And when I understood that it's not something separate and we are spiritual beings, that we are having a human experience, oh my goodness, it completely changed everything. I was like, that makes so much sense. And it feels so liberating and free. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad I finally get this.
I love that you say it like that, because it is so true. Religion takes God, goddess, infinite wisdom, whatever you want to call it, and places it outside of ourselves as something to worship via intermediaries, whether it be priests or Jesus, or you can't go to God directly. And I think once we recognize that we all have God's source within us and that we can honor that, and as you say, we're here to have a messy human experience. And the less we resist that and the more we accept that stuff is going to happen, anything that is triggering and activating us is something more that we can work on more deeply to know ourselves better, to heal ourselves at a deeper level. And I was watching this reel on one of the social apps. I can't remember which one, doesn't really matter. They're all much of a muchness. But it was going on about how people are getting sick of others saying, oh, I'm so triggered by that. Ooh, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
But the interesting thing, when people are walking the walk and actually doing the work of spiritual development and growth and inner understanding, as well as how that then relates to the collective conscience. So looking at the micro within the macro and the macro within the micro, being able to understand that, yes, being triggered and activated is an important part of our awareness to know what to work on. But those who are doing the work don't necessarily go out and go, what you said there triggered me or activated me, or
Yeah, it's
very much, oh my gosh, I've had this activation. What do I need to do about it in my personal time? What do I need to look at? Who do I need to work with? Who do I reach out to help me through this if I can't do it on my own? What inner tools do I have to look at that activation and see if I can heal it? So I love the way you've described that, because it's very obviously very much on a line with the way I feel about spirituality as well. And I think that's also why some people have such difficulty in finding their own spirituality, because they've had, say, a negative experience with religion or a negative experience with that more occult side of new age spirituality, or there's some kind of negative experience pushing them away from that organized ritualistic dogma that can often come in. And yet once they've cleared some of that stress and trauma and they reconnect into themselves, it's where the magic is. So thank you so much for putting it in such a beautiful way.
Oh, just yeah, when you were speaking then I had remembered something as well. Also along my process of spirituality, when I went to Sedona, and that's a very spiritual place. Oh my goodness, it's magical. And the people that go there and live there is what we sort of typically see in movies of what spirituality is, the hippie. And I'm like, that's one also side of it. And that's, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like they're too up here and not enough groundedness. And I'm like, and I remember saying, if I ever become that, just pull me down. I feel like that's gone way over to the other side, and it's still not sort of that. The grounding piece is really important for it to actually sort of, I don't know what it is, but I know you've described it really well, that sort of those levels, but that's the other thing. And it drives me nuts every time I watch a show or see it. And when there's a spiritual person in there, it always comes to the hippie stoners. And I'm like, but I'm a spiritual person and I live in the real world and do real things and grounded and pay bills and shave my legs and, so. And I went just, I don't know, I feel like there's that misconception of like, when you become spiritual, that's what's going to happen to you. However, it is, you are spiritual, and it's just simply being who you are. It's not, like I said, something separate or different. You are a spiritual being. You don't have to become it. So that's when you're saying, that's what the image came to me of why probably in the past I avoided it, because I was like, oh, I'm not a hippie, so therefore I can't be spiritual. And so, yes, and I think that's still a lot of what people see of what being spiritual is.
It's often that off with the fairies, or
Yes.
not being grounded in reality. And I absolutely agree. I feel like the more tethered I am to this 3D experience that I'm having as a human being that I've signed up for, the more tethered I am to that, the higher I can reach. It's when I'm trying to cut that tether and think that there is only this ascension or higher vibration or whatever. But actually, I think of it, if you look at the orchestra, if you just had all of the really high instruments, I don't know about you, but that would really bug me after a while. I love the bass. I love the drums. I love the things that connect us to those more earthy sounds. And to have all of them actually makes us more coherent beings. What I find with that airy fairy stuff is it's very heady. So it's very much looking at those top 3 chakras, but we have 7 for a reason. And yes, the lower ones do vibrate at a slower level, aren't quite as much fun to experience. Although in saying that, let's face it, the base and sacral can be pretty fun to experience. But being truly present in our bodies, to be able to have that full experience of humanity, I agree, is just amazing. I think when I first found my spirituality, I probably did go a little bit more into that hippie aspect of it for a little bit, because it was almost a rebellion against what I'd come from. So I did this pendulum swing and then went, I'm actually not really a hippie. Let's find this center path where I can take a little bit of this spirituality or a lot of this spirituality, but do it in my own grounded way. So
I love that. Yeah.
So what has been some of your experience in connecting to your spiritual self? So obviously you've mentioned your intuition a lot. Have there been any of those moments that have just gone, whoa?
I think the big one, that feeling where that energetic spiritual connection, was when I met my partner for the first time. And that was a experience. It was all energy. I know that we spoke, but I couldn't get any words out because the energy that was flowing was so intense, and I never experienced anything like that before. And so I didn't really care what he was saying, because I was just tuning into this, like, what is this? I just like feeling into this. And that kind of happened the first few times we kept like seeing each other. And then to find out he was experiencing exactly the same thing. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And so then that sort of also, I wanted to go a little deeper into this. I think that also was a thing that triggered or catapulted me more into wanting to know about more of the spiritual realm of that connection. So that there, but other things, I mean, I don't know if this is the same thing or what you mean, but I do like get like downloads, like this knowing. And I am here in in Australia, in Melbourne, because of a message that I received from up there. And I never thought it was ever crazy. I just would be like, okay, are you sure? And would then take action from there and actually do the thing, instead of doing the thing I thought I was supposed to do. And so I'm here in Melbourne, in Australia, with my twin flame, with 2 more babies, because of a download that I received. And I would only get these really big, loud downloads when I was at a turning point, or a crossroad, at a crossroad in my life. And that's when I would really get them, those kind of, that person Or it's someone telling me, no, you're not supposed to be moving to Perth. You're meant to be staying here. And it's like, oh, okay, I better cancel all those things then.
Do
Oh,
you
yeah.
find the more work you've done, the more clearly you receive the messages, or the more you can discern between, I guess, a soul calling versus, I don't know, fear or external influences or anything like that?
Um, yes, and I'm going to say no, because I've been getting these downloads way before I started the work and always listened to them. And I don't know why. And I never really told anyone about it because I didn't really know what to say. Like, what would you say to someone? And it was only until like I met you and you started talking about intuition and this knowing and these downloads. I'm like, oh, it's a thing. So it's just something I've always had, and I've never questioned it. I've never doubted it. And I don't know why. I don't get them as much now. And I think that's because I'm exactly where I'm meant to be right now. Doing the thing I'm supposed, like, this is where I've been going, like, this is my path, and this is where the universe has been wanting me to come to. So I haven't actually had a really strong since, what was it, 2019. I haven't had a really strong one since. So I feel that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. But yes, that knowing, and I've never doubted it, thank goodness. I don't know where I would be.
Well, I can tell you where you go if you don't listen to it and if you don't act on it, because I heard it all the time. I just didn't have the courage to act on it. So, you know, if I had, my life probably would have been completely different. How do you think that this connection for you with your clients helps them on their journey?
Um, yeah, that's a really good one, because I would sometimes get these downloads or these messages, and I'd be like, that's interesting. Why do I need to know that? And that's it. But I would never think about it. And then like that day or the next day I'm having a coaching session. Oh my goodness, it is and I'm like, I'm just gonna say this. If it lands, it lands. If it doesn't, and I say to them like, oh my goodness, how did you know? Like, I'm like, I don't know. And also, and I would not question it, but I would, and just ask permission if I can share what I've received. And interesting, last week, one of the students said to me, are you a medium? And I said, I don't think I am, but I am very intuitive. And she goes, well, you're something. So yes, I trust. I guess it's that trust in myself and trust in my body wisdom, what I'm receiving, and having the courage to say what has come to me has taken practice because of the work I've done, and you know, coming to sessions with you, and through working with, you know, coming through to the lunar life, listening to everyone else, knowing that it's safe to have this voice that's within you and share it with people. And so it has, through time and through practice, and having the courage to go, I've heard, this is what I hear, this is for you, and being received. And if it's not received, if they weren't ready to hear it, then that's okay too. So yes, it's very, very empowering, and it almost feels like I'm not doing this alone. I don't need to have all the answers and ready for a session, because the universe is, whatever it is actually supporting me, and something will come at the right time. Yeah.
And I love that you also mentioned with that connection to the intuition that it's because you're present in your body. There's that really physical aspect to it for you. And I love the way you describe that, because that's how I find it as well. The same way that you were talking about your spirituality being within you, I think also those psychic and mediumship skills are often inside us, even though it feels like we're getting the messages from externally. Whether we call them psychic and mediumship skills, whether we call them intuition, whatever name we want to give them, gut feelings, vibes, you know, whatever you want to use. I think it's recognizing that it's all coming from within here, because this is connected to everything else energetically. So I really love that you talk about it being such body wisdom, because I think that part is often forgotten when we get into this, what's considered the more woo-woo aspect of spirituality, is that we're forgetting to ground and be really present and fully embodying our body.
Yes, and that's why it's so important to love yourself and treat yourself with respect, because it is all connected. The more you nourish your body and the more you look after your body, those messages are a lot more clear and a lot more available to you. So the more blocked you are, obviously that's going to be blocked and a bit blurry and not so clear. So yes, so it's all connected. And yes, we are all complex, but it's the simplicity of it, of the simple things that keep us connected and grounded.
Yeah, I love that. So we're getting towards the end now. I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everybody. What does being a divine, messy human mean to you?
Experiencing all of life, all of it. And I'm saying that with the passion. I'm saying it because I am living it right now. I am in it. I am neck deep in it. I'm alive. Like, it actually, I feel alive, and it means just being alive with all the emotions, feeling all the emotions, including anger, love, passion, sex, all of that. Like, all of it is there, and that is what it means to be that divine, messy human. Because I'm in it right now, and it's amazing, and it's terrifying, and I hate it. I've never experienced this level of being human and messy in my entire life. And this, even though it is challenging, but this is way better than what I was doing before, when I was suppressing all of that through food and well, mostly food, just suppressing it all. And so this is highly recommend.
Oh, I love it, darling, and love you. Thank you so much for coming on. So tell everybody how they can find you.
Yes, thank you. This has been amazing. So you can find me on my website. Everything's there, actually. So georgiedoherty.com. You can also find me on Instagram. I think it's georgiedoherty.co. And also, if you want to come in and join us at our Lunar Life events, you can come into the Facebook group. It's Lunar Life, and come and join us. You can find that on the website. The events are there. We have our event on Friday, this Friday. And yeah, so if you're wanting more of that support and connection while you're living your divine, messy human life, honestly, this is the place to be.
Fantastic. Oh, so much love to you. Thank you so, so much for coming on. As you know, I could speak to you all day, and often will get those opportunities too. But for now, thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. Thank you, Georgie, for shining your light in the world. And remember that we are all connected to the divine. We are all messily human. And the more we accept all of that, it does make our experience so much easier. Thank you guys so much.